Hi, I'm Stephen with AlbertaUrbanGarden.ca. On today's episode, we're going to talk about starting your tomato plants indoors and giving them a great head start into the season without having to spend a lot of money. Starting your seedlings too early in the season is an affliction that most gardeners suffer from. It's a fine line between starting them early enough to give them a head start to the season and having them too large that they get transplant shocked when they go outside and you lose a good chunk of your season. Here in Zone 3, I cannot really afford to lose a lot of time in my growing season to transplant shock. So I start my tomato seedlings the third week of March. This gives them enough time to get a running head start to the season, but they're not too big when I bring them outside that they'll get a significant transplant shock. So you've decided that you want to start your own tomato seedlings at home inside. The first bit of information you'll need is your expected last frost date. This gives you the earliest point in which you can get those tomato seedlings outside. The second bit of information that you'll need usually comes on the back of the seed package. It's how many weeks before that expected last frost date that you'll need to plant them inside to give them that running head start. If you don't have a seed package, there are plenty of resources on the internet that can give you this information based on where you live. Now that you know when to start your tomatoes, you need tomato seeds. Over the last few years, I've been on a mission to find tomatoes that I quite enjoy. And last year, I found some. So I decided to save seeds. Saving seeds is not only a lot of fun, but it saves you money. If you plan to save seeds, you'll want to make sure that you have a variety that's open pollinated. What open pollination really means is this variety has been developed and pollinated by a wide variety of things. So what you get from this is from year to year to year, if you continue to save those seeds, you're going to end up with fairly consistent characteristics of that tomato. However, that tomato will evolve over time, and this is due to other tomatoes cross-pollinating with it, adding their genetic material and characteristics to it. But they're generally a lot more stable than, say, an F1 or a closed pollinated tomato variety. What this means is they control everything so that you get the variety and characteristics that you want. But if you save seeds from that, what you end up with is a lottery of characteristics, usually closer to the parents of that F1. But if you're in for the gamble, go for it and enjoy the process. If you don't have seeds, make sure you trade for them or order them online a few weeks in advance of when you need to plant them. This will give you time to get them in the mail. My favorite source for online tomato seeds is Baker Creek Seeds at rareseeds.com. Not only do they have a wide variety of open pollinated tomatoes, they have great descriptions that go with them. We've all dreamt of that 2-pound or 900-gram tomato, but alas, all gardens aren't necessarily in the best condition to produce them. With short seasons or a little more shade in the garden, it's best to focus in on tomato varieties that are medium or small bodied. With my season ranging between 100 to 120 days, I look for on the seed package a days to ripeness of 90 days or less. This makes sure that I have the best possible chance for a successful and abundant harvest. Now that you know when to plant your seeds and you have the seeds, it's time to select a container. Generally what I do is I start with the smallest container I can find and slowly move up as the roots hit the side of the container. When I'm up potting these tomatoes, I'll place them at the bottom of the container, removing any branches or leaves that'll be below the soil level. Tomatoes are a part of the nightshade family, and what this means is out of the main stalk, they'll actually send new roots if they're in contact with the soil. I'll generally continue to do this potting, up potting, and up potting again until I hit a 1 to 2 liter container, or say a half-gallon container. What this will do is it'll develop a large and deep rooting system for your tomato. Once outside, it'll be able to access nutrients and water that it previously probably couldn't get to. This will help you conserve water and save money. Now that you know when you have the seeds and you've got the container, it's time to find a light source. If you've got a south or southwest facing window, you can grow your tomatoes in that window. Simply rotate them every couple of days to make sure they're not leaning over too much. If you don't have a south or southwest facing window, CFL light bulbs from any of the big box stores will do just fine. Just make sure you get the right Kelvin for growing plants. You want to make sure that those lights are as close as possible to the plant within, say, a ½ inch or a couple of centimeters to make sure that your tomato seedlings don't get too lanky. So now that you've got your tomato plants growing, it's time to start thinking about watering and fertilizing. I generally bottom water, and I do this for a couple of reasons. It promotes a deeper rooting system for the tomato itself and helps keep the surface of the soil dry, helping to prevent pest problems. My potting mix is made up of 1 part absorbent soilless potting mix, and the second part is compost or vermicompost. What I found in the past with this soil mix for seed starting is the compost or vermicompost has more than enough nutrients within it to feed the plant as it's growing inside. If you start noticing discolorations in the leaves, you've likely got a deficiency in nitrogen, phosphorus, or potassium, the macronutrients. You can fix this by giving it a weak organic fertilizer. To know that you've actually fixed the problem, you'll have to wait for the new leaves, and what they'll show up is lush and green instead of, say, yellow and pale. Once the threat of the last frost has passed, wait a week or two to bring your plants outside. Then you're going to start a process called hardening off. The best grow lights or the best glass in the world is still no match for unfiltered sunlight. So you don't want to shock your plant too much by just throwing it right into the garden and exposing it to this unfiltered light. What you want to do is find the shadiest location in your garden or your yard and start there, preferably starting with no direct sunlight at all. And day after day, what you're going to want to do is expose it to slightly more sunlight each day. This process for tomatoes usually takes me 2 to 2.5 weeks. Hardening off will lessen the transplant shock. You're there. You did it. You have a hardened off tomato plant ready to go in your garden. If at all possible, make sure to plant it very, very deep, leaving just a few leaves on top to get the plant going. If you can't plant it deep, planting it in a trench will get some of the same benefits for you. Don't worry if there's just a little bit of plant on top. What you have below is a huge extensive root network that'll allow the plant to catch up and surpass even the bigger plants with smaller root networks. Do you have tips and tricks that help get your tomato plants off to a great start? I would love to hear them in the comments section below. Thank you very much for spending time with me today. I appreciate it very much, and I hope you have a fantastic day.